Good afternoon, brothers, sisters, respected friends. Peace be upon you all. I hope that you have all been well and healthy and happy. And it's just a matter of time before our happiness goes down the drain. It's just a matter of time before something really bad happens in Australia. It's not the time for Muslim leaders to be lying to each other. It's not the time for taqiyya. It is not the time for us to be ignoring this serious and dangerous matter, like how we've been ignoring it all these years. It is time for us to wake up and seriously take action. Now, woke up this morning to hear that a bus full of Christian Coptics in Egypt gets raided by several masked gunmen, obviously Muslims, radical Muslims, and they kill dozens of people. A while ago, in recent times, Palm Sunday, the whole church was blown up and the Coptic Pope was injured. And you know, when you really study the history of the entire Christian faith within Egypt and the Middle East, one needs to be very honest to history and to religion and to God and to their own selves and admit the fact that this is not the first time, it's not the second time, it's not the 100th time. This matter has been going on for over 1,000 years. Christians obviously existed before Muslims around the world. And now we have the Muslims believing that it's okay to kill Christians. We have two major problems when discussing terrorist attacks. The first problem comes from the more powerful side of things, and that is the political leaders around the world. These people that are considered part of the left movement in world politics. I'm not going to call them traitors because I don't think they're doing this deliberately. All I'm going to say is that they are ignorant from what is happening and what this ideology is driving them to. These radical Muslims are not mentally disturbed. They are not lone wolves. They are not uneducated. These radical Muslims have memorized their Islamic scriptures from cover to cover. These radical Muslims are very well educated. Some of them are doctors, and we have seen doctors go and join ISIS and behead. You have someone who studies 10 years to become a qualified person to go and save someone's life, become radicalized, and go and start ending people's lives and killing them. These are not uneducated people. We cannot turn a blind eye to the problem. We need to be honest with ourselves and honest with Australia and honest with our nation. We have an ideology. Radical Islam is a religion. The same way moderate Islam is a religion. Radical Islam is beheading moderate Islam, and the death threats I face are the clearest proof that one could offer. This is true. The religion that will end up killing me is radical Islam. We have a big problem. This is an ideology. We cannot look at it as though it's some organization or some cult or some political movement that's going to come and go. No, this is something that's here to stay, and it believes it's going to stay. And their slogans and their chanting and their signs and their symbols all indicate that these people want victory. They're here to dominate the world. Now, how we deal with that is by honesty, and we cannot deal with it by the attitude of the left side of politics that is actually contributing to the death of many innocent people, Christians, Jews, and Muslims. The left turns around and says, do not judge Muslims. Do not point the finger at them. don't talk to them. Don't say anything. Whenever there's a terrorist attack, thank the nurses. God bless the hospitals. Move on with life. And I say, yes, we thank the nurses and we love the hospitals and we donate our own blood to these victims. But we can't turn a blind eye to what is happening. There's a serious problem. There's a serious problem when it comes to radical Islam. For the left to turn around and tell me, as an educated Australian, or any educated sane person, for the left to turn around and say, hey, look, get to know the terrorist. Understand them. Try to learn about their culture. Understand why they're doing this. What do you say to such people? Get to know the terrorist, the extremist, and don't judge them. The extremist is out there in Sydney making a homemade missile to launch it into my community, into my Australian society, and gets caught by the federal police, by ASIO, God bless them, and you want me to get to know them and, try to understand what's happening. We can't live like this. This isn't a multiculturalism. You cannot have 300, 400 people under a watch list in Australia who can go out and buy a gun, like how that 15-year-old murderer of Curtis Shank went and bought a gun, and he didn't like the gun that he bought at first. When he obtained the gun, he didn't like it. That's what the WhatsApp messages that were revealed by the police show, that he didn't like the gun, and he went and he got another gun within the same hour. How does that happen? A 15-year-old, he must have had some sort of basic training. But at 15, where did you go to train how to use a gun and aim it directly at a police officer? And it's just really sad. You have 300 of these people, all of them under watch. Who are we kidding? You want me to get to know them? I don't think so. It's about time Muslims became very honest with themselves and said, look, thank you, a big thank you to the left, and say, thank you, left politics. We appreciate that you are for multiculturalism, you are for Muslims integrating into society, you are for Muslims being successful and living a better life in Australia. But having 300 to 400 extremists within our community is not multiculturalism. It is suicide. Why can't we understand this altogether? Why is it that it's very hard to believe that a terrorist attack could happen tonight in Australia? Why is it very hard to believe? How many times do we have to warn these people? But nobody understands. This is the first aspect to the problem. You have the left that say, don't judge and get to know them. Then you have the other side of media. I don't want to call them the left. They're the very ignorant channels, the very ignorant journalists. They're the very ignorant people who don't know what exactly is going on. They don't know the agenda of the terrorist. They don't know that the terrorist is actually feeding off your tolerance. They don't know that. They can't comprehend that terrorism is actually spreading because of your tolerance. These people, they come out and they say, well, you know what? All the terrorists, they're mentally disturbed. All the terrorists, they're lone wolves. They suffer depression. All the terrorists are trying to elaborate and, trying to be heard. Therefore, they blow themselves up. And this only does one thing, and that is prevent the moderate Muslim from the need to go out there and voice their opinion against radical Islam. Because if a moderate Muslim keeps hearing that terrorism is not Islam, it's not radical Islam, it's not a terrorist version of Islam, it's not a false interpretation of Islam, these people are all mentally ill, they're mentally disturbed, do not listen to them, don't worry about them, they don't represent Islam, and so on. The moderate's going to sit there and say, well, doesn't bother me. I'm not the one that's doing anything. I'm a moderate. And therefore, I don't have to do anything to reclaim my religion from these terrorists that have hijacked it. The moderates are now sitting down and not saying a word. And then you have the bigger problem, a problem that is bigger than left politics, a problem that is bigger than ignorant journalists, a problem that is bigger than all these two, and that is the Muslim leaders in this country. You come and you speak to a Muslim leader in this country. You tell them, dear Imam, dear Sheikh, why is it that we have radicals in Australia? Not one, not two, in the hundreds. These are the hundreds that are discovered. But when rallies happen in Sydney, just within the last 10 years, 5 years ago, when rallies happen in Sydney, where do these thousands come out of? Where do they come from? These thousands, where do they come from? Holding signs that say behead those that insult Islam, behead those, Obama, we love Osama. What is going on? Where do they come from? You come and you ask an Imam and they say, well, when a Muslim applies for a job, they usually get rejected and don't really have a job. And when you don't have a good job, you become depressed, and then unemployment plays a big role in people being radicalized. And every time we apply for a mosque to be built, it usually gets rejected, and therefore this is the problem. What are you talking about? We have almost 1 million unemployed Australians in Australia. Does that mean we have 800,000 extremist terrorists, potential terrorists in this country? Of course not. Since when do you blow yourself up when you don't get a job at Target or Woolworths? Since when do you go grab a gun and start shooting at police officers because you don't have money in the bank? One or two, we could say mentally disturbed, but come on, a week doesn't go by now without a terrorist attack. On Sunrise, I clearly said a month doesn't go by, but now, according to the calculations and how much I'm posting about these matters online, it is very clear that a week doesn't go by without a serious terrorist attack somewhere in the West and on this planet. What do we do? How do we tackle this ideology? Firstly, with regards to what has happened to the victims, Christian victims in Egypt, well, the Grand Mufti of Australia, I mean, he studied in Al-Azhar University in Cairo, in Egypt. And I had visited that university and I've taken a look at their curriculum and I know exactly what they teach. And the Grand Mufti of Australia, Dr. Ibrahim Abu Muhammad, cannot deny this fact at all. The Grand Mufti of Australia studies, he received his degree from Al-Cairo University in Egypt. And in that very university, they teach the students that it's okay to wipe yourselves in the toilet with the pages of the Bible and the pages of the Torah. And you can insult Christianity and insult Judaism. Why? Because it's not real Islam. That's not the religion of God. Therefore, wipe yourselves in the toilet with the pages of their book. But if someone draws a cartoon about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family, you want to go and behead him. But it's okay for you to go and do that to other people's religious and holy books. It's not making sense. I follow a Muhammad that when he used to walk the streets, people used to insult him and spit at him and direct foul language towards him and wage war against him, and all he did was pray for the enemy. That is the Muhammad I follow. And that's the problem with my version of the Prophet Muhammad, because only a minority follow such a Muhammad. The majority of the people follow a Muhammad that is a pedophile terrorist. That's the problem with the majority of Muslims. And they don't have the time to go and research for the truth and reject what is false. Now, I don't want to get into the historic beliefs of Islam. But if you have a mufti that has graduated from such a university that tells him, hey, Dr. Muhammad, you're the future Grand Mufti of Australia. You know what? There's a good jurisprudential ruling. You can wipe yourself in the bathroom with the Bible, with pages of the Bible and the Torah. And I'm going to bring evidence of what I say in my next live appearance when I discuss Sharia law and show you how Sharia law is actually a violent issue that we have to deal with today. It's because of the roots, the educational roots. The Grand Mufti studies in Egypt, gets his degree from Egypt, in the same school that preaches hate against Christians. He publishes articles against the West, and then he comes here, and this morning, not a word from him regarding what happened in Egypt. All these people being killed and massacred. And it's just a matter of time before we see something happen in Australia. God forbid. What are we going to do? How much longer do we have to wait before we see authorities take action? Why is it that we are not putting maximum effort towards this matter? I, once upon a time, was schooled in a typical Muslim college. And what do they teach you in a Muslim college? They teach you hate. They teach you to not accept anyone else's ideology. But it's when I moved from the Islamic college in Perth and I went to a public Australian school, that's when I began to interact with the Christians and the Jews for the first time in my life. And that's when I understood that this Quran, when it refers to Allah being my God, that Allah, that God, is the same Father in Christianity. So if the Christians and the Jews and the Muslims all worship the Creator, regardless of what you label him, why is it that we have to kill each other? The Muslim school never taught me that. The Muslim school told me the Christians and the Jews will never accept you unless you go and become one of them. Of course. Well, Muslims don't accept the Christians and the Jews either. Religions believe they're on the right path. Each religion believes it's the truth. It doesn't mean you go around killing each other because that's how they think. You don't kill people for the way they think. That's their level of thinking. If I think differently than you, you don't come and kill me. That's not right. And that's exactly what's been happening all this time. The people out there, you can't even go to the shopping center. You can't even go and have a regular life. A father leaves his house and has to kiss his little children goodbye because he doesn't know if he's going to come back home. Why? Because he's Christian. And Muslim leaders are doing nothing. Give me one honorable Muslim leader. Look at them all. The Iranian government, Hassan Nasrallah, Khamenei, the Saudi regime, they're all terrorists. Hamas, who the Grand Mufti visits, they're all terrorists. They're all terrorists. I do not care if they're registered or not registered around the world. If they kidnap and they behead and they wage war against the innocent, they are terrorists. That's exactly how we need to look at things. We're either going to be people who are dealing with matters realistically, or we're just going to be people who think that terrorist attacks have become part of our regular life. It's very normal. A terrorist attack for many of the people who live in Iraq and Iran, for them, a terrorist attack is just like another car accident. It's very normal. 10 people died, 30 people died, no problem. When are we going to wake up? It starts with the schools. It starts with the preachers. Can you believe I'm receiving messages from people taking photos of the preacher in the mosque from around the world. And the preacher's preaching Islam with a gun in his hand. I'm going to post a photo tonight. A preacher preaching Islam on the pulpit with a machine gun in his hand. Well, of course, if your religion revolves around killing other people, murdering other people from other religions, killing the non-Muslim, to bring victory to Islam, we're never going to see the end of terrorism. I really don't know. I don't want to come out and appear to be... I'm very sad. I'm very sad. It's about time our hearts started to burn. And when you talk, speak as though you really care. Don't come out acting. On Sunrise, Dr. Jamal Rifi, why are you acting on television for? If you live in peace, then why is it that the day before your appearance on Sunrise, Manchester bombing, the day before Middle East bombing, the week before that you get death threats, a day after that you see what happens in South Australia, a lady is caught, 22-year-old, having links with ISIS. The next day Egyptians get sprayed with bullets. Why? Because they're Christian. Why do you lie? Do not lie to people. Tell them, we have a big problem in our religion. Big problem. And whoever's going to say no is a liar. Whoever says there's no problem in the Islamic religion, everything's beautiful, We don't need reformation. We don't need to alter and kick the radicals out of our communities and ban radical preachers. Leave the borders open and all this type of talk. They're lying to you. That's what's going to get us killed. The type of leaders that we have that are not honest. Now let me make a point. According to the Muslims, according to us Muslims, this is God's book. This is the Quran. It is God's book. Now why is it that many people, authors, philosophers, educators, university teachers, professors, write tens and tens and tens of books, and they write encyclopedias? These geniuses that we have in history have written encyclopedias. But surely God is more knowledgeable than them. Then why is it that God only has one book? I'm pretty sure God has a lot more to say than just a few 400 pages. The answer is that we have a book that is made of formulas and laws that need interpretation. This comes aside the fact that the Arabic language is an extremely eloquent language, and not everyone can understand the language of the Quran, even if they speak Arabic. Most of these clerics don't even have a clue about what the Quran is actually referring to. And when you come and you want to deduct Sharia law from the Holy Quran, if you don't understand the value of human life, you're going to be deducting laws that will later on in life form the religion of ISIS, whereby you can always come out with a peaceful modern interpretation that is compatible with everywhere on this planet. Everywhere you go, people will not have a problem with you. I follow the Quran, but when I look at verses that tell me to behead and kill and wage war or even defend, I look at them as though they are part of the development of Islam and historical occurrences that occurred in that history, in that time. But I will not take them out of the Quran. I'll leave them there so that new generations can come and see how Islam has developed into a peaceful religion, so to say. But if we have preachers that come out and say, no, leave the violent verses in the Quran and let us go out there and butcher and kill and slaughter and chop hands and behead and stone, and that's not history. We need to revive. Khomeini used to say, when they told him that after your Iranian revolution, you've taken Islam 300 years backwards with your executions. 5,000 executed in one day without trial. Imam Khomeini. Why? Because you worked for the Shah of Iran. What was your job? A chef, a taxi. Anyone that was in the Shah's employment system was executed. When he was questioned, why did you take Islam back 300 years? He said, I want to take it back 1,400 years. How do you deal with someone like that? And then they come and they tell you he was a genius and a thinker and a revolutionary. Absolute nonsense. A terrorist is a terrorist. Even if they're eloquent, even if they're rich, even if they're handsome, even if they have power, even if they have a following, someone with a terrorist ideology is a terrorist. So when I say, let us consider the violent verses in all religious scriptures, all religious scriptures. In the Bible, Matthew 10, verse 34, it says that Jesus said that he has not come by the sword, he has come, I apologize, in the Bible, Matthew 10, verse 34, Jesus is apparently quoted saying that he has not come to bring peace, he has come by the sword, to separate a man from his son and a mother from her daughter, and so on. I mean, when I read that verse, I know any Christian can come and start butchering and killing if that verse is taken out of context. But I thank the Lord that Christianity had undergone a reformation, and therefore such verses can no longer be applied. That and also with other things. Every religious book has a problem in it. Don't turn around and tell me that, Imam Tawhidi, if you have a problem with Islam, why don't you change your religion? Or what religion do you want me to subscribe to? Every religion has a radical version to it. And this is the main problem. Muslims, stop leaving your religion, stay in your religion and fix it. When you leave, no one is going to fix it for you. It's the same mentality. We turn around and we say, refugees, stop coming to our country and ruining it for us. Stay in your country and fix your problem. Overthrow the tyrant. Get rid of Saddam Hussein by yourself. Don't come to our country and ruin it for us. Stay there, and our government should help your government overthrow the tyrant. But do not leave your country and come here thinking it's going to be fine. Your country will remain a platform and a place for terrorists if you leave it. The only time we can change religions and countries and societies is if we, the people, unite on honesty and actually take action against radical Islam. That's the only time. I'm a Muslim. I've been a peaceful Muslim all my life. Yes, there were times in my life where I was about to go down the wrong road, and that is because of my radical teachers who are still preaching in Perth and in Western Australia and in other places. I've had radical teachers in the past, and I have to admit that. I had radical teachers because I went to a Muslim college. That's why. In a Muslim college, they bring you radical teachers. And I only opened my mind to the truth when I left the Islamic college, and I went and I integrated and I started to connect with the Australian majority. We shouldn't lie. And I thank my God for that. We thank God for that. That we, once upon a time, every Muslim, look, when I say this, when I just say that I once upon a time had radical teachers, every Muslim is subjected to being taught by a radical teacher. Every Muslim. Whether it be in the mosque, in the madrasa, in the newspaper, in the book, in the school, in the community event, Eid, every Muslim is subjected to a point in their life where they can face a situation where they will be radicalized. Every Muslim. And it's only lucky Muslims that can get away with it. I was taught the Bukhari. I was taught the Bukhari. The Bukhari is a violent book. And the Muslim teachers taught me the Bukhari. The Bukhari is the main source for terrorism today. And I, thank God, had the opportunity to understand the filth and reject it. Otherwise, many people wouldn't be able to reject the filth because they would really believe this is what God wants. And now I want to educate the people about the filth within the Bukhari, the filth within the teachings of Ibn Taymiyyah, the filth within the teachings of false interpretations of the Holy Quran. I mean, if I am not educated in them, if I don't come from such a community, how can I have the experience to tell you about radical Islam and the dangers of radical Islam? You just can't. You need honest Muslims to turn around and face the radical ideology that they were raised with and say, look, I will no longer accept this and I'm going to try and reform it. You need Muslims to start speaking up. We can't sit there and say, no problem, it's an educational curriculum. Let it pass by. Funded by the government. Let it go, no problem. Did you know that every Muslim school consists of a mosque as well? Every Muslim college has a mosque. You know, you have statistics, and it really burns, it really hurts me when I read statistics. We have such and such amount of mosques in Australia. Compared to other countries, our mosques are very little in number. And then you look at them and you say, you have no idea what's going on. What about the Muslim schools and madrasas? Every Muslim school has a huge Muslim mosque. Huge Muslim mosque. And there's no record, who teaches, who preaches, what's going on. Nobody has an idea. And nobody cares. Because they don't care. It's all about policies. It's all about votes. It's all about taking taxpayer money. I don't know. I really don't know. It really burns because I know the danger of radical Islam. And I want to warn you. I want to tell you about it. But nobody seems to comprehend what's happening, and only turn back to me, the media, and other moderate Muslims around the world, turn back to me when something happens. It's like, didn't I tell you? I told you that there's a group within my Muslim community in Australia that is thinking of buying huge properties and turning them into Muslim communities. And I use the word country. I admit, I use the word country, that they want to create a country within Australia. And many people were upset. Why did you use the word country? I mean, what word do I use for a community, a large community of a housing estate with their own Islamic banks, their own Sharia law, they want their own patrol police, and they're going to have their own mayor and their own councillors in that area. What do you call it? That is a form of government, but it's Islamic under the Commonwealth. What do you call it? It's called a non-registered country. That's what it is. It's a non-registered country within our country. They haven't claimed independence yet. We'll put it that way. I mean, what are you going to do to such people? We either wake up, and I know many Muslims that lived a life of radicalization, and they want to change, but they're afraid. Look at people like Majid Nawaz and other reformers. Once upon a time, they were all radicals. And I thank God that I was never radicalized. Never. I never allowed anyone to turn me into a radical. Never. Why? Because I knew the filth that was in the books. And unless we teach the Muslims about the filth that's in the books, we're not going to be able to deal with the problem. We had radical teachers, and they would talk, and we would just sit and laugh at them. Why? Because we knew they were radicals, ignore the radical. But we wanted to pass the exam, otherwise we would fail. But we had to play along. But deep inside, growing up as a young child, I knew that the God I worship can no longer be a God that wants me to kill other human beings. And if true, there's a God that wants me to kill human beings, I do not want anything to do with that God at all. It's a matter of time. That's all it is. It's a matter of time before something really bad happens. And I do not want to see Australia go down that road. This is why I'm coming out and I'm risking my life to speak out. But who's going to listen? The Holy Quran teaches Muslims to love and respect everything around them and the law of the land. But the problem is only a minority believe in my version of the Quranic interpretation. The majority, I'm not going to lie, the majority are not tolerant. Yes, they dress nice and suit and tie and nice homes and nice cars and nice family and a good job and pay tax. But an honest and sincere Muslim will always admit that part of their law and ideology is to massacre everyone that they do not agree with. That's an honest Muslim. Part of the Islamic ideology pushed by Ibn Taymiyyah, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, is basically, also Ibn Hanbal, is basically to behead everyone that doesn't agree with the God you believe in. And the problem is, I turn around and I say, well, wait, the same Father in Christianity is the same Allah in Islam. Why are you killing each other? Stop it. But they're not going to stop. And now you have the moderate Muslims. The moderates are the worst of them when they come out on television and say, you know what, I don't like ISIS, mistreating women, but it's okay to beat your wife as a last resort. And this is supposed to be a moderate. What do you call yourself after you see someone a moderate? You become ashamed to call yourself a moderate. You start to look for new terms. Patriot. Aussie Imam. I love that title. Why? Because it allows me to uphold the Australian values while preaching. That I'm very proud of the Australian values. And I want to be known as the Imam that is a peaceful person, not like the other Imams. But as soon as you want to start pushing this Imam of peace idea, no, they want to come and attack you. I mean, you should be preaching in a mosque holding a machine gun. I'm going to post a photo right after this live episode. I condemn what happened in Egypt to those poor Christians, and how their bus was sprayed by bullets, and how their churches are being blown up. But for how long are we going to condemn? Honestly, if you gather all of the condemnations that have been issued and taken place around the world since the time radical Islam was spread by the second Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, how are we going to come and look at all the condemnations? I mean, nothing has changed. You keep condemning. Next day, terrorist attack, condemn today. Tomorrow, terrorist attack, condemn today. Condemn in the morning, terrorist attack in the evening. Condemn in the evening, terrorist attack in the morning. When is it going to stop? It's going to stop when governments, we can't do anything. We don't have that type of power. I can only make an organization, make an association, possibly even some media production to tackle radical Islam as an ideology and enlighten people. But in no way can I ban people from coming, ban the terrorists, protect our borders. I can't do that. I'm not the government. Governments need to do that. We need people we can trust. And come election time, Australia, you have one option and one option only. If you're going to go and vote for the party that wants to give you better electricity and better water and more submarines and, the green and so on. If you want to vote for those parties, then go vote for them. I speak for myself. Come next election, I am not going to vote for any party that tells me that it wants to give us a good battery for the state or a good electricity company. I don't want that. I can live without electricity, thank you very much, but I cannot live peacefully with 300 to 400 members of Hizb ut-Tahrir roaming our streets, all of them being potential terrorists. I cannot do that. I can live without water and electricity. I could manage. But I can't live when I have terrorists roaming my community, raping my woman, and doing that. I can't do that. I'm really sorry. I'm going to vote for the party that tells me and that it will promise me, once it is elected, it's going to kick out all of the radicals from the country. Absolute deportation. Don't come and tell me we have laws and human rights. We're human beings. We are human beings. The problem is people like Hizb ut-Tahrir do not consider us to be human beings. That's the problem. We treat them as human beings. They don't treat us as human beings. What do? You say, we're really sorry we let you into this country, thinking that you would at least treat us as human beings. Now you want to turn around and execute Australian citizens? Kick them out of the country. I will vote for that type of a party. In any case, I'm really heartbroken and I'm sad, and these radicals are angry people. They're angry people. And unless you come out with full passion and full honesty and face them face to face and don't allow them to hijack the society that we're living in, they're going to take over. We need to be very firm. There's a big difference between being an angry person and being someone who's sad and who has a burning heart with passion for the country. There's a big difference. In any case, I really hope that the Christian community in Egypt reaches a solution. We want a two-state solution between the Christians and Muslims, and give the Christians the places that have more petrol. Because if the Muslims have the places with more petrol, the Christians are going to turn into poor nations. But if the Christians have more petrol, the Muslims will live a happy life. Because Christians do not starve other people. But the Muslims, very normal. The Muslims, they cut the water, they cut running water from the grandson of their own Prophet Hussein and beheaded him in Karbala. They kill each other, they massacre each other. These radical Muslims and leaders. I wish you all a wonderful evening, and I pray that this would be the last we hear from any terrorist attack, although I know it's going to be a long way from here. We need to unite and stand firmly against radical Islam. This is very serious, and in my upcoming Facebook live episodes, I will be directing the people that are interested in standing with me against radical Islam in Australia, I will be directing them to certain projects that we need to unite as a nation. We cannot allow these people to take over, which they are taking over, slowly but surely. And I'm really sorry to come out very sad, but it's very normal for a human being to react in such a way. God bless you all, and I really hope that one day I could come out and give you some good news. It's not working right now. The world is bleeding from radical Islam, and we cannot deny that. God bless you all, and until next time, goodbye.